Guys, you've met the Sigma woman, seemingly unshakable, always composed, but have you ever felt like there's something more there, something she's trying to hide? This video isn't about breaking her down, it's about revealing the precise, almost hidden vulnerabilities that men notice. Are you sharp enough to see them? Guys, you've met the Sigma woman, seemingly unshakable, always composed, but have you ever felt like there's something more there, something she's trying to hide? This video isn't about breaking her down, it's about revealing the precise, almost hidden vulnerabilities that men notice. Are you sharp enough to see them? So you think you've got the Sigma woman figured out, huh? You know the type. Independent, mysterious, and just a little bit untouchable. But no matter how strong and self-sufficient she is, there are a few cracks in that armor. The thing is, most people miss them. They see the quiet confidence, but they don't notice the subtle ways she's actually human. Here's the thing, these weaknesses aren't obvious. In fact, she's a master at covering them up. But trust me, they do show, and if you're paying attention, you can spot them without even trying. Now, I'm not here to bash the Sigma woman. Heck, I love the whole vibe. Strong, silent, never needing anyone. But even she has those little moments where the walls come down. If you're a man who's paying attention, you'll catch them. So here's what happens. Let's take a look at the 8 weaknesses a Sigma woman can't hide, no matter how much she tries. 1. She struggles with trust. You see it, right? The way she holds everyone at arm's length. She might seem like she's got it all together, like she doesn't need anyone, but deep down, there's a massive struggle going on. It's not that she doesn't want to trust. It's that she's terrified of it. She's built her entire world around independence, and that means depending on no one. She's learned the hard way that trusting people can lead to disappointment, betrayal, and ultimately feeling let down. It's not that she's negative or cynical, it's just that she's seen the darker side of human nature and learned to guard her heart accordingly. When it comes to trusting someone, especially emotionally, it's a huge challenge. She wants to let her guard down but doesn't know how to. She's been let down before, and that fear of repeating the past keeps her closed off. It's not easy for her to open up, and even though she might appear calm, collected, and in control internally, there's a storm brewing when it comes to vulnerability. She's got this protective wall around her heart, and no matter how much she might like someone, she'll hesitate before she lets them in. She's not trying to be cold or unapproachable. It's not that she doesn't appreciate the people around her or care about the relationship she has. It's that she's been hurt before and the scars are still there. People might think she's just being picky or overly cautious. But the reality is, trust is something that she's had to earn from herself first, and that takes time. Her sense of self-reliance has made her incredibly strong, but it's also made her wary of putting her heart in someone else's hands. She doesn't trust easily because, in her mind, letting someone in means giving up control. And for her, control equals safety. She's afraid that once she lets someone in, they'll either leave or disappoint her, and that fear keeps her from letting anyone get too close. Even when she wants to, even when the connection is there, she holds back. It's like she's always waiting for the other shoe to drop, expecting something to go wrong. And it's not just romantic relationships either. She applies this same hesitation to friendships and even family dynamics. She keeps everyone at a distance, not because she doesn't value them, but because she knows that trusting people requires emotional investment. She doesn't want to risk her own happiness on the possibility that someone might not live up to her expectations, and honestly, that's exhausting. She has learned how to rely on herself because no one else has ever truly been there when she needed them most. That's why she doesn't trust anyone to have her back completely, and it's why she often chooses solitude over company. She's comfortable with her own company, and it feels safer to her. She's been burned, and that's left its mark. She might even tell herself she's fine without anyone, but in reality, there's always a part of her that wishes she could trust someone enough to let them in. But the truth is, until she feels absolutely secure, trust will remain a distant dream for her. This struggle with trust doesn't mean she's broken or incapable of deep connections. It just means that for a Sigma woman, trust is earned slowly, over time, and it's not something she gives away freely. For her, opening up emotionally is a monumental step. She's not going to let anyone in until she's absolutely sure it's worth the risk. Have you ever felt like someone was holding back even when you were trying to be there for them? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Now, back to the point. She'll often push people away, even when they're trying to get closer. She's just too afraid of being let down. If you've ever tried to be the one she opens up to, you know it's a slow burn. 2. She's afraid of vulnerability. She might seem tough, but deep down, there's a vulnerability she tries to keep under wraps. It's not that she doesn't have feelings. Trust me, she does. It's just that vulnerability is one of the things she fears the most. Sigma women pride themselves on their independence and strength, and showing any form of weakness feels like a direct contradiction to that self-image. They've built their lives around being self-sufficient, so the idea of depending on someone else, emotionally or otherwise, can make them feel exposed. For a Sigma woman, showing vulnerability isn't just uncomfortable, it's like a risk she can't afford to take. She's afraid that if she lets anyone see the more sensitive side of her, she might lose control of the image she's worked so hard to create. She's afraid that if she lets her guard down, others might see her as fragile or weak, and that's something she simply can't allow. Her fear isn't necessarily about being hurt, although that's definitely a factor. It's more about the idea that vulnerability makes her less self-reliant. It makes her feel like she's giving up some of her independence, and that's not a trade she's willing to make. She values her freedom and her autonomy so much that showing vulnerability would be like offering up a piece of her power, and that feels like giving in. Sigma women don't like being vulnerable because, in their eyes, vulnerability makes them human in a way they're not sure they want to be. It's like being vulnerable opens the door to emotional chaos. She might worry that if she lets herself feel too much, she'll lose control over her emotions and, by extension, lose control over her life. It's not that she doesn't care about others or doesn't want to connect on a deeper level. It's that she's learned, through experience, that vulnerability can be a weakness. She's seen how other people use their emotions to manipulate or control situations, and she doesn't want to fall into that trap. To her, emotional independence is key. She doesn't want to be needy, and she especially doesn't want to appear emotionally dependent on anyone. She may go through life quietly bearing the weight of her fears, insecurities, and dreams, because sharing them would make her feel exposed. It's easier for her to carry everything on her shoulders than to ask for help, even from someone she trusts. This fear of vulnerability doesn't mean she's cold or heartless. It just means she's deeply protective of her inner world. It's a form of self-preservation. She might even want to let someone in, but there's always that hesitation, that pullback, when it comes to opening up emotionally. She'll often mask her vulnerability with strength, sometimes even with sarcasm or humor, to cover up the fear of being seen as weak. She'll act like nothing affects her, but the truth is, a part of her wants to connect, wants to let someone see her for who she really is, vulnerabilities and all. However, showing that side is a scary prospect because she's afraid of how others will perceive her. It's a constant battle within herself between wanting to be open and fearing that doing so will expose her to hurt. Vulnerability requires trust, and trust takes time for her. Until she's 100% sure someone is worthy of seeing that side of her, she'll keep that vulnerability tucked away. She might act unbothered on the outside, but underneath, there's a constant internal struggle to stay strong while hiding the softer, more vulnerable side of her that's desperate to be seen. 3. She needs validation, just not from you. She'll never admit it, but a Sigma woman still craves validation. She might not want to acknowledge it, but deep down, she needs to feel that her efforts matter, that she's recognized for the things she does. The thing is, she'll rarely seek that validation from you. It's not that she doesn't appreciate your opinion, but she's not going to make herself vulnerable enough to rely on you for approval. She's the kind of woman who values independence, and that extends to her sense of self-worth. She doesn't want to need validation from anyone, and especially not from someone she's close to. She doesn't want to feel like she has to prove herself to anyone, least of all to someone who might be too close to see the real struggle. So, while she may not admit it, she's constantly looking for validation in other places. She'll seek it in her work, in her hobbies, in accomplishments, and even from people outside her inner circle. She needs to prove to herself that she's doing okay, that she's on the right path. For her, validation is a private thing, a personal quest. She might achieve something incredible, and you might notice it, but she won't bask in your praise. Instead, she'll look for recognition from people she feels have more authority or distance. This is because external validation for her often feels more rewarding. It's almost like she's testing herself against the world. She needs to know that, on her own terms, she's measuring up. She seeks validation in places where she can control the narrative, where she can feel like she's in charge of how others perceive her. The workplace is a big one. She throws herself into her career, making sure that every goal is achieved, every target is hit. That's where she feels seen, valued, and appreciated. It's not necessarily about the job itself, it's about the sense of accomplishment and recognition that comes with it. In her personal life, she might look for validation through achievements in her hobbies or skills. Whether it's something creative, like painting or writing, or something more physically demanding, like fitness or sports, she puts herself out there, hoping for that little bit of recognition that says, "You're doing great." But when it comes to you, it's a different story. She won't ask for compliments or praise because doing so would make her feel vulnerable. She wants to show you how capable she is without needing you to tell her she's doing well. If you do offer praise, she might brush it off or even act like it's no big deal. She doesn't want to admit how much it means to her because, in her mind, needing praise makes her less independent. Share your experience in the comments. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe for more insights. This need for validation doesn't mean she lacks confidence. It simply means that at her core she's human. No matter how strong or self-sufficient she is, she still wants to know that what she does matters. However, asking for validation is something she finds difficult. It feels like a compromise of her autonomy, and she's fiercely protective of that. She wants to know she's doing okay, but she also wants to prove it to herself first. So, she keeps her need for validation under wraps, seeking it in places where she can maintain control. She needs it, but she'll never admit it to you. 4. She's really, really bad at asking for help. A Sigma woman is a master of handling things on her own. She's fiercely independent and prides herself on her ability to solve problems without needing anyone's assistance. She's the type who can juggle a million tasks and still make it look easy, even though inside it's a constant balancing act. But here's the thing, despite how capable she may seem, she's really, really bad at asking for help. It's not that she doesn't need it, trust me, she does, but it's that asking for help feels like admitting that she's not in control, and for a Sigma woman, control is everything. If she allows herself to rely on someone else, it means giving up a little bit of her autonomy, and that's a trade-off she's not always willing to make. She's been let down before by people she trusted, and because of that, she's built up a wall around herself. The idea of depending on someone else, even for something small, is incredibly uncomfortable for her. It feels like she's exposing her weakness, and that's the last thing she wants anyone to see. This isn't just about big life-changing situations. It can be something as simple as asking for help with a project or admitting she's overwhelmed by her workload. Even when she's drowning in stress, she'll still try to manage everything herself. It's not pride per se, but a deep-seated belief that if she doesn't do it herself, it won't be done right. She's used to relying on herself and has developed an almost instinctual resistance to asking for help. She worries that if she asks for help, she'll appear incapable, and that fear of looking weak or dependent keeps her from reaching out. There's also a part of her that feels guilty about burdening others. She doesn't want to seem like she's imposing on anyone, even though she might be carrying a heavy load. The idea of needing someone else is tied to vulnerability, and for a Sigma woman, that's a place she avoids at all costs. When she does finally crack and admit that she needs help, it's often because she's completely overwhelmed and can't keep up the act anymore. Even then, she'll struggle with how to ask, and when she does, it's likely to be very indirect. She'll downplay the situation, act like it's no big deal, and maybe offer to figure it out later, even if it's clear she's already out of her depth. She'll rarely ask for help directly, and if she does, it's because she feels she's absolutely run out of options. Even though she'll often refuse offers of assistance, she secretly appreciates it when people do offer. However, accepting help doesn't come easy. She's more likely to try and handle things alone for as long as possible, putting herself under unnecessary stress. This issue with asking for help comes from a deep-rooted belief that asking for assistance is a sign of weakness. It's a fear of being seen as incapable, and it's also a way of keeping her independence intact. The truth is, she doesn't want to seem like she needs anyone, even if deep down she knows that it would be okay to ask for support now and then. It's a tricky balance for her, one where her desire for independence often outweighs the need for help. So, while she might appear completely self-sufficient, the reality is that a Sigma woman would feel so much lighter if she could just accept the help when it's offered without feeling like she's losing a part of herself. 5. She hides her loneliness. Despite the cool, independent exterior, a Sigma woman often feels incredibly lonely. It's not that she doesn't have people around her, it's that no one truly understands her on the level she needs. She might have friends, colleagues, or acquaintances, but at the end of the day, she's still on her own. And even though she seems perfectly content with her solitude, there's a deep, quiet loneliness that she keeps hidden from everyone, including herself sometimes. It's not always about being physically alone. It's the emotional isolation she struggles with. She's always kept people at arm's length, guarding herself against getting too close. But the result is that, even in a crowd, she can feel completely disconnected. Sigma women have a natural ability to thrive in solitude, and they can spend long periods by themselves without feeling like it's a problem. But beneath that independence lies the truth. Loneliness can sometimes feel suffocating. It's hard to admit, especially when she's worked so hard to build a life where she doesn't need anyone. She can often fool herself into thinking she's fine on her own, convincing herself that she doesn't need anyone's company, but deep down, there's a yearning for connection that she can't fully ignore. This loneliness isn't something she's quick to share. She'll never openly talk about it, and she'll often dismiss it as a non-issue, even though it quietly affects her. She'll make excuses to avoid close relationships, often pushing people away just when they start to get too close. The idea of letting someone into her emotional world is terrifying. She doesn't want to be vulnerable, and she certainly doesn't want anyone pitying her for feeling alone. So she carries this loneliness in silence, hiding it behind her need for independence and control. The truth is, she craves deep, meaningful connections, but is terrified of the implications of having them. A Sigma woman often feels like she's different from everyone else, like there's no one who truly gets her, which only deepens her sense of isolation. She may be surrounded by people, but none of them really see her for who she is. There's a sense of emotional distance that keeps her from getting too close to anyone, which in turn only amplifies the feeling of loneliness. This isn't to say that a Sigma woman can't enjoy time spent with others or have meaningful relationships. She absolutely can, but those connections always come with the understanding that she's still holding part of herself back. She never fully lets down her guard, even with people she trusts. The loneliness she feels is more about the emotional space between herself and others, and the inability to truly open up to anyone about how she feels. She's afraid that if she lets someone in too much, they'll realize just how lonely she actually is and think she's weak. She can't bear the idea of appearing needy or desperate for connection. So instead, she internalizes everything. She hides her loneliness behind the walls of independence she's built for herself. But even the strongest walls can't keep the loneliness at bay forever. So while she might spend a lot of time alone by choice, The reality is that there's a part of her that longs for deeper connections, for someone who truly understands what it's like to feel as different as she does. The problem is, she's afraid of what it would take to open up to that kind of bond. The loneliness lingers, but it's a secret she'll keep for as long as she can. Have you ever had someone who seems like they don't care, but you can tell they need that recognition? Let me know in the comments. If you're liking this content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to keep up with the latest videos. 6. She has control issues. For a Sigma woman, control is everything. It's not about being bossy or needing to dictate every situation, but she has an almost innate need to keep things in her life organized, predictable, and under her thumb. She's built her world around the idea that the more she can control, the safer and more secure she'll feel. When things are chaotic or out of her hands, it makes her anxious. The need for control is a defense mechanism that stems from past experiences where she might have been let down or felt vulnerable. It's her way of keeping herself grounded in a world that can often feel unpredictable. She's learned that if she doesn't control her environment, it can quickly spiral into something she's not prepared for. This can range from the smallest details of her daily life, like knowing exactly how her routine goes, to larger life decisions, such as career choices and relationships. For her, uncertainty is one of the scariest things. When she can't control something, it sends her into a spiral of worry. The fear of the unknown often overrides her ability to just let go and trust the process. Even in relationships, her need for control can become a problem. A Sigma woman might struggle to let someone else take the lead, even when it would be healthier to do so. She's so used to managing her own life that it feels uncomfortable when someone else offers a different perspective or takes charge. She might act as though she's okay with sharing control, but deep down, she'll quietly pull back if things don't go according to her plan. She won't express it openly, but the frustration will build up. This need to control isn't about being domineering. It's more about feeling like she has a handle on everything around her. She needs things to go a certain way in order to feel safe, stable, and in charge of her own life. The more she feels things slipping out of her grasp, the more she'll double down on trying to regain control. Her control issues can also manifest in her tendency to overthink every situation. She'll play out different scenarios in her mind, trying to predict what will happen next and how she can control the outcome. While this gives her a sense of security, it can also be mentally exhausting. She'll second-guess herself, question her decisions, and feel the need to always be in the driver's seat. If things don't go according to plan, she'll take it as a personal failure, even if it's beyond her control. The emotional weight of that can sometimes be overwhelming, but letting go of control feels too risky to her, and that's why it's so hard for her to trust people with anything important. If she allows someone else to take control, she's afraid they'll disappoint her or let her down, and she's not ready to face that. The issue with her control doesn't only affect her relationships or work life, it affects her inner peace too. She constantly feels the need to be one step ahead, thinking about everything that could go wrong. That's a huge emotional and mental burden. The irony is that by trying to control everything, she often ends up creating more stress for herself. Yet, this need to stay in control feels like the only way she can protect herself from the unpredictability of life. Until she learns how to let go of the reins a little, she'll always feel like she's walking a tightrope, constantly balancing the need for control with the fear of losing it. 7. She's easily overwhelmed, but won't show it. A Sigma woman is the definition of strength and resilience. She seems like she's got everything under control, handling work, personal life, and everything in between with ease. But underneath all that composed exterior, there's a tipping point, a point where everything becomes too much and she's completely overwhelmed. The difference is, you'll rarely see it. She's incredibly good at masking it. She doesn't want anyone to know how much pressure she's really under, because she feels that if she shows any weakness, it'll somehow undermine her independence and strength. She feels like she has to be the one who holds it all together, even when things are crashing down around her. She takes on a lot, probably more than she should, because she has this inherent belief that if she doesn't do it herself, it won't be done right. The reality is that this constant juggling act starts to wear her down, but she'll rarely admit it to anyone. She'll keep pushing through, silently carrying the weight of everything, and maybe even trying to maintain that perfect image of being unbothered. This constant pressure builds up over time, and although she may seem like the picture of calm and control, she's not immune to feeling completely swamped. The problem is that asking for help or showing any sign of being overwhelmed feels like failure to her. She doesn't want to be seen as incapable, so she hides it. She keeps all of her emotions tightly under wraps, not allowing anyone to see the strain. But that internal pressure doesn't just go away. Eventually, it starts to manifest in small ways. Maybe she's snapping at people for no reason, or becoming more irritable, or withdrawing into herself. These are the subtle signs that she's reaching her breaking point, but she'll rarely acknowledge it. She'd rather bottle everything up than admit she can't handle it all. The burden of trying to appear perfect and capable all the time is exhausting, and yet she keeps up the act. She can handle a lot of stress, no doubt, but the reality is, even the strongest person has their limits, and for a Sigma woman, those limits are pushed further and further with each new responsibility she takes on. She's fiercely independent and doesn't like relying on others, but that also means she's not likely to ask for help when she needs it most. She'll tell herself that she's fine, that she's got it, even when it's clear that the weight of everything is becoming too much. This constant internal struggle of wanting to maintain control while feeling overwhelmed can lead to burnout, but she's determined not to show it. The stress builds in silence, and it's often only when she's completely drained that she'll finally admit to herself that she needs a break. But even then, it's more of a quiet acknowledgement than an open confession. For a Sigma woman, acknowledging that she's overwhelmed is like admitting that she's not perfect, and that's something she struggles with. She'd rather continue to power through, even if it means pushing herself to the limit. The problem is that this constant pressure can only be ignored for so long before it starts to affect her mental and emotional well-being. While she may not show it on the outside, the inner toll of constantly holding everything together is significant. The trick is, she has to learn that it's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes, and that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. Until then, though, she'll continue to shoulder it all, hiding her struggle behind a carefully curated mask of strength. 8. She won't let you in, even when she wants to. The Sigma woman is fiercely independent, but there's a hidden truth beneath her composed exterior. She longs for emotional connection. It's not that she doesn't want to be close to someone or share meaningful moments. She does. It's just that for her, letting anyone in emotionally is one of the hardest things she can do. Even when she wants to open up, even when she feels that pull towards someone, she won't. The walls she's built around herself are not just physical barriers, they're emotional fortifications that keep people at a distance, and she's very protective of them. She's terrified that if she lets someone in too much, they'll see the vulnerabilities she's worked so hard to hide. These emotional walls aren't just for protection. They're a symbol of her need for control. The more she allows someone to see her for who she really is, the less control she feels she has over how they perceive her. It's a fear of being misunderstood or judged for her more fragile side. She'd rather keep things surface level, maintaining that cool, distant demeanor, because it's safer that way. Even in relationships where there's genuine attraction or emotional connection, she'll hesitate, she'll hold back, even if deep down she wants to let go. She might give subtle signals that she cares, but it's rare for her to open up fully. She might even have moments where she's vulnerable, but she'll quickly retreat as soon as she feels like she's revealed too much. It's almost like a reflex. Once she starts to feel too much, she pulls back, creating distance before she can get too attached. She wants to trust, she wants to connect, but the fear of losing control, the fear of becoming emotionally dependent on someone, always outweighs her desire for intimacy. She won't let anyone in, not because she doesn't want them there, but because letting them in feels like losing a part of herself. This is a defense mechanism she's honed over the years, and it's not easy for her to break. She might say she's fine being on her own or that she doesn't need anyone to complete her, but the reality is, everyone needs someone. The Sigma woman's loneliness comes from the very thing she fears most: getting too close to someone who might not understand her, or worse, someone who could hurt her. She's been burned before, and those experiences have made her wary. The pain of emotional betrayal cuts deeper than most realize, and she can't risk opening herself up to that kind of hurt again. It's easier for her to keep her distance, to control what she shares, and to keep her heart under lock and key. In relationships, this distance can be frustrating for her partner, especially when it's clear that there's a deep emotional connection. She might act aloof or nonchalant, even though her feelings are strong. She'll often hide behind humor or distractions, deflecting serious conversations that might force her to confront her vulnerability. She'll stay in control of how much she reveals, keeping the most intimate parts of her life and emotions carefully guarded. The paradox is that, even though she doesn't want to let you in, she desperately wishes she could. But until she feels absolutely certain that someone can handle the weight of her vulnerabilities, she'll keep her distance. And in the end, it's not about not caring. It's about the overwhelming fear of losing control over herself in the process. So, there you have it. The 8 weaknesses a Sigma woman can't hide, no matter how hard she tries. These aren't just random quirks or small flaws. These are the deeper vulnerabilities that many people miss or overlook because they're hidden behind layers of strength and independence. But even the most self-sufficient woman has her weaknesses, and the Sigma woman is no exception. Her reluctance to trust, her fear of vulnerability, her need for validation, and her struggle with asking for help, all of these things are a part of her. They make her who she is, and whether you're attracted to her because of these traits or despite them, they are part of the complex mix that makes her human. The question is, do these weaknesses make her less appealing, or do they make her more relatable, more authentic? Do you see them as deal breakers, or are they just the things that make her real in your eyes? I know some of you might be thinking that these vulnerabilities are just too much to deal with. Maybe you feel like it's too much effort to break down those walls, to get past all the emotional barriers she's put up. And hey, I get it. It can be exhausting, trying to understand someone who's so guarded, so private, and so fiercely independent. But on the other hand, there's something deeply human about her struggle to balance her independence with the need for connection. She's not perfect, no one is, but these weaknesses are what make her story so compelling. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of the perfect woman, the one who has it all together all the time. But the truth is, we all have our own weaknesses, our own insecurities, our own fears. So, let me know what you think. Do these weaknesses change how you view the Sigma woman? Do they make her seem more relatable to you, or do they make her seem like too much to handle? I want to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, or if you want more content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I've got more videos coming your way that dive even deeper into the Sigma personality and all the complexities that come with it. You won't want to miss what's next. Trust me. You know that Sigma women aren't just about independence. There's a lot more to them than meets the eye. So stay tuned, because next time I'll reveal the one thing that can break a Sigma woman's walls. It's the thing that no one ever expects, and when it happens, it's almost impossible to ignore. Trust me, you'll want to be the first to know what it is, so make sure you're subscribed and ready for the next video. You won't want to miss it. And if you're as curious as I am, you'll want to dive deeper into this mystery of what can actually break down the walls of a Sigma woman. It's going to be eye-opening, so I'll see you in the next one.